Hi, so I'm gonna try to do this while I'm driving so that I can at least document all of this. I'm not sure if I'm going to post this yet. If I did, hello. The reason why I sound like this is my voice is going in and out of being gone because of screaming. So, apologize for that in advance. So, if you're watching this, you probably know me, at least, because you must be following me if you're seeing it, unless, whatever else. So yesterday was my birthday show, September 10th at Norfolk. My birthday is technically today, September 11th, but I was choosing to celebrate my birthday with Bastille and all of the lovely, amazing people that I met and already knew from yesterday. And also because September 11th has always been a pretty sad day since it happened when I was in second grade. So I chose to spend my birthday saying that it was yesterday. So keep that in mind. And all of my friends planned these surprises and really great things for me yesterday, and I cannot express it enough or even begin to show my appreciation to these people. But first of all, Beverly, whom all of you may know if you followed the Bastille Insider account for Norfolk, she is the wonderful, beautiful lady who was running it and making it to be probably the most interesting and wonderful Bastille Insider experience you could possibly want. She planned surprises for me, brought me food. My friend Megan, whom I knew beforehand, made the banners, which you may or may not have seen, that had "It's Her Birthday" with a lot of anchors on it, because I like the anchor. And another one that said, "Kyle, can she touch your beard again?" Which, if you don't know me or know the story of when I met them for the first time, I asked Kyle to touch his beard because I'm a Kyle stan and because I'm weird. So that's a whole story, but that's neither here nor there. And I met a lot of you. I got to meet Sid, I got to meet Courtney, I got to meet so many people that I know here on Twitter. Within the first 10-15 minutes of even sitting on the ground outside, I got to meet Melody, who I hadn't previously known before, but she was like, "I know you from Twitter." And I was like, "Oh great, I'm a trash post person." But so I spent the day with just the most wonderful people sitting outside on the Pink Flamingo, which you again might have seen, our Pink Flamingo named Dick Meredith. There's a whole big story behind the inside joke with that, with Beverly's Raleigh show months ago. If you want to read about that, it's her pinned tweet on her Twitter at Cozy Beverage. So we had a big inflatable Pink Flamingo we were sitting on all day. Everyone was asking us about it. It's a fun conversation piece, and we named it Dick Meredith because we love him. And so the day began pretty early in the morning when we were sitting outside, and we were the first in line the whole day. However, all of the drama that happened with the people who made the reservations at the restaurant, which we also did, to get in early access, that's a whole other thing, but I'm not gonna harp on the stuff that happened with that. I'm gonna try to be positive. But so we were first in line the whole day, and so as people started coming, like, we kind of introduced ourselves and they came and saw our flamingo, and there was a church that was in the building first in the morning, so all these church people got to see us and talk to us, and it was just so pleasant. So it was really, the main lot of us there were me, Beverly, my friend Megan, who I came with and we shared a hotel room with, and then Julia and her friend Sarah. Such great people. I can't even begin to express that enough. Melody, who was with us all day. And it just, over time, like, people would hang out with us and not hang out with us because they had places in line, and obviously we didn't want to have a whole bunch of people cut. But that was the main group of us. And we were sitting there all day just chatting, Julia doing her makeup, just hanging out. So the first thing that starts happening is that across the way, like down the sidewalk vertically, we see around the corner, the first person that turns the corner is Kyle. And they are about, and this was in the morning, about like morning, early afternoon, kind of something around that. So we see, like, down the sidewalk, looking straight down, Kyle turning the corner, probably about a building and a half away. So obviously, like, we didn't yell or anything, but we were seeing it, and I kind of, like, was, like, very shook by that, because that was the first of any of them that we saw, and I love Kyle. So we saw Kyle turn the corner first, then Will and Woody followed suit, and then Charlie, who we noticed yesterday was just kind of waltzing around doing his own thing, because I guess he doesn't really think that people will come up to him, but we were saying hi. He walked down the sidewalk past us, and we were just kind of like, hey, Charlie, and he was like, hey, like, kind of awkward and shy, which I pretty much expected. And he went inside. So all of their crew just basically, the whole rest of the day, started bringing in boxes after boxes after boxes. They spent a lot of time setting up. And we got to know their crew, and they are such great people. I mean, some of them we know, like Ollie, and basically the familiar faces that we see on the crew. And they were so nice to us. Like, they weren't, even the ones that didn't talk to us were just kind of smiling and laughing along with us. And some of them liked to talk to us and just, you know, ask us about the flamingo and all that fun stuff. So then the stuff with Dick starts happening. So Dick was walking up and this is real life Dick. I'm gonna have to say that. I'm gonna call the flamingo Dick Meredith, but real life Dick. He walks down the sidewalk a few times, and we kept, like, not realizing it because there were just so many people going up and down and up and down. So he walked past us a couple times when we didn't really realize, and then we turned our backs and we saw him, and we were like, that's him. And so finally he comes back later. We tried to get his attention one time, but he was basically in a rush and just, like, was not fully there. Then he comes down the next time, and we were like, hey, Dick, like, what's up, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of stopped and, like, chatted with us a little bit, and then we brought up the flamingo. We told him about the name of it, and he kind of remembered because Beverly had done this at the Raleigh show, and he knew that it was named after him and everything. So he kind of knew the flamingo thing. He talked to Beverly a little bit about flamingos. He was very concerned about the flamingos in Florida right now, which I thought was very pure and adorable. So we were just chatting with him. I was mostly chatting with him for the most part, because I feel like I was the most extroverted of the group, just kind of chilling. I told him, well, I was just kind of was having a casual conversation with him, and I told him about my embarrassing thing with Kyle, and I was like, I've met you before when we were trying to meet them after a show, and I talked to you a little bit and told you to tuck them in, and just was kind of like refreshing his memory a little bit, I guess. And I was just telling him how much I appreciate him and love him, because I do genuinely love him. Like, I feel like people just kind of talk about, like, the tour people and whatever, but we don't ever really outrightly say often, like, that we love and appreciate them and really do respect what we do. And there are some people who have said they've had bad experiences with Dick. However, in my experience, I've seen that the times that he will walk past and will ignore you yelling at him is because he's got a job to do, and, you know, he doesn't always have time to stop, and sometimes people just flag him down to give him things to put on the bus, and I'm sure that if I were in his position, I would not want that all the time. So I have only had fabulous interactions with the man, and now I would consider us friends when I explain the rest of the story, because he's just, I love him to death. And I'm excited to see him again in a few days in Philly. So I was just chatting with him, talking to him a little bit about, like, the concerts I had been to, just a little bit about me, and it was just really nice to talk to him and have a conversation with him, because he genuinely, like, kind of wanted to hang out with us a little bit, but of course he had to do some running around, and so we stopped talking to him for a little bit, and he was like, all right, I gotta go do this, blah, 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 and he was like, I'll probably see you guys later. We ended up seeing him like 8 more times. So we're chilling, I'm napping on the flamingo, doing all that stuff, and then they start sound checking. We're a little bit around the corner from the entrance. So all of us at the very front of the line started hearing the sound check. So that's why you're seeing the pictures of us with our ears up against the glass on Twitter, if you saw that. I'm gonna try to tag most of those posts somehow and start a thread, because there's a lot, and I don't usually do threads, but there's a lot to kind of sift through. So we started hearing, I think it was, what was first? I think we started hearing Lethargy first, if I remember correctly, but we did hear Lethargy. They didn't play Lethargy at the concert. They were switching, they picked between Snakes and Lethargy, and they ended up doing Snakes. But they sound checked it. Then we started hearing Hang It, and we all were kind of, like, freaking out, especially because we saw the set list for Pittsburgh. They hadn't done it, and we were like, that's just teasing. Why are they sound checking hanging if they're not going to do it? They did end up doing it, which was incredible, and I've been wanting to hear that song live, and I never thought I would, which was such a blessing. So we heard that, and then we started just hearing like kind of shuffling. He was talking into the mic a little bit. It was just like sound check stuff, and then we started hearing other things, and we were like, what are they doing? And we were hearing same kind of a little chorus one after the other, and we started realizing they were playing new music. And from what I could hear, it sounded like at least they did at least 4 songs, or 4 little bits of songs. I heard 3 different like specific lyrics over and over again, so that, but I don't know if they're separate songs, and I think I probably overshot it a little bit when I said 4 on Twitter because everyone freaked out. It was really just a lowballing answer, because it sounded like at least 3, and then I thought I had heard another one. So we were all freaking out. Beverly started recording a little bit on Bastille Insider. I didn't record any of it, because the little bit that I was starting to try to do at first, I was realizing it was not really picking up the sound. And also, for me, I didn't really feel bad standing up next to the glass listening to it, because I don't feel like that was a malicious, thing to do. And I understood why Beverly recorded it for the Bastille Insider, because of course that's exciting news and everything, but if you are someone who shared that video or posted it on Instagram, or like was posting the audio places, please don't. If you want to listen to it and you want to be excited about it, that's great, but if we could not spread it around a lot, that would be great, because I really don't want them to then feel like they can't sound check or, be more comfortable with it. I don't know. So just for any of you who heard it or spread it around, that's fine, but try not to at this point, just because, yeah. So us group of girls, about a dozen of us or so, were the first people in the world to hear this new Bastille music, which is just insanity to me. Insanity, because the Pittsburgh show, they didn't really have a way to like hear the sound check, at least from what I was asking around and everything. And to my understanding, they would have been sound checking outside, and people would have heard it, and so they probably didn't sound check new songs. So we are the first people in the world to hear bits of new Bastille music, which is insanity to me. And it's such a blessing. It was such a cool experience with all of those girls, just with our ears up against the glass. It was just so, having that experience with them and being with them just made it so much better. But anyway, so we did a little bit of that. Then I started sharing the wealth of my birthday snacks that Beverly made me. So I started going down the line of people once a lot more people showed up, and I was sharing my Rice Krispie treats, and everyone was talking to me, and I kind of got to talk to everyone in line, which was also so great. I just love meeting other Bastille fans. It's so wonderful. So I was sharing some of my birthday treats. Beverly was doing all of the fun stuff on the Bastille Insider Snapchat, which was like asking people funny would you rather questions. It was so much fun. And honestly, after all the drama stuff that happened with the people that were waiting inside, to me at this point, like, I can't be upset about it, because I had such a fun day outside with all of those great Bastille fans that everything ended up working out, and I got to spend the day, my birthday, with some of the best people. I can't express that enough. Some of the best people I've known. And I'm telling you, like, I could cry talking about it. I was spending time with a lot of different people, meeting new people, getting to meet people that I knew on Twitter that I knew were going, and it was wonderful. So then we want to go to our reservation with the restaurant thing, because we were supposed to get early access. It turned out that the earlier you make your reservation, the earlier you can wait by the stairs to get into the venue backstage. And not backstage, or kind of backstage, which we found out and were very, very frustrated by, because we were waiting outside since 7 a.m. And there were people that just showed up, and some of them didn't even eat at the restaurant like you were technically supposed to. You were supposed to get a receipt to get the early access, and just showed up and like checked in with people or whatever, and sat on the stairs, and were in the very front part. And I will say this, because I don't want to be full of drama or start anything. There were plenty of people who did that I'm sure didn't realize what they were doing at the time was kind of cheating the system. But it is what it was. So we got pushed back quite a bit, and I was really scared and started getting really anxious. And it sounds so stuck up and stupid, but because of my anxiety, it just kind of like spiraled and my emotions all just kind of started flowing out, and I got really upset, especially because I was seeing all these people in front of me now, and I had been in the very front all day, and I was so happy and excited that I was like kind of crushed. However, I ended up being, which I've been for both Bastille shows I've been to before now, I ended up being literally just like 1.5 people away from barricade on Kyle's side. So there were no complaints from me after that. I was still anxious because of like everything that happened, and I was just very caught off guard. So I needed a chance to calm down. Beverly was calming me down, and the whole day, honestly, shout out to her. But shout out to her for helping me calm down in that moment. And by the way, before I talk about Frenship coming on, they were unloading their gear in front of us when we were outside earlier that day, and they are so nice, and their crew is really nice, and honestly, just like seeing how it kind of made me feel really great, like seeing them helping their crew unload all their stuff, and it was just really nice. It was really nice to see too, because like I feel like both Bastille and Frenship both were actively helping the crew with getting all of their stuff out and doing everything. So I just really loved seeing that. And Frenship, when they came on, are incredible, really just incredible performers. And I gotta say, I had listened to their music when we first found out that they were going to be opening for this tour, and it had been a while since I had listened to their music, because honestly I hadn't been thinking about it actively for a long time. But when I had listened to their music before, I remember liking it, and I was like, why didn't I listen to this more often? But then when we were hearing some of these songs live that I recognized listening to beforehand, I was like, wow, these guys can perform. Like, they had so much energy on stage, especially James. He's dancing around like crazy. And they were just, honestly, they were like electric. Like, I could feel through all of them performing, like, even Celeste behind the piano at first, before she was singing part of the song. There was just this energy about them that was just such a large amount of excitement, and at the same time, you could feel how blessed that they felt that they had people there listening to their music, but I felt blessed hearing them perform. It was just honestly incredible. And I gotta say, I really wish I didn't yesterday, just because there's a lot that I've been paying for the past few days. I really do want to get some Frenship merch. I love their merch, and I'm going to the show in Philly, so I'm thinking I might partake in some Frenship merch, and if there's a chance, maybe get the Bastille tour shirt. But yeah, they were absolutely incredible, and I would 100% support them and go see them for their own concert. So yeah, then Bastille come out. Beverly had handed out kazoos to dozens of people in the front of the line that were outside, and we kazooed the beginning of Send Them Off when they came out, and you could hear it a little bit, but Dan didn't realize that we had the kazoos until we were just kind of kazooing in the middle of songs, not like annoyingly so, but just kind of like kazooing instead of like wooing. And he was like, oh, like, is that a kazoo? And he saw Beverly's, and she threw it to him. And so I held up mine to Kyle and was just kind of like, and he was like kind of like motioning like, for me, like, can I have it? And I was like, yeah. And so I was just kind of like offering it to him, and he was like, yeah, like he was excited to have it. So I threw it up to him, and it like fell on the floor, and I had to like point to where it was on the floor because he couldn't see it. And it was funny, and it was a kazoo that I had been using all day, so I was kind of afraid once I realized I threw it up there that he was just like, he would start playing it. He didn't. He had it on his keyboard though. And I was like, that had been on my mouth and probably had lipstick on it, which he probably laughed at if he took a very close look at that. And I can't remember if he ended up taking it or not, to be honest. But yeah, so I think he found the kazoo thing pretty funny. And I think it's kind of set the tone of just silliness and like excitement from us. It was just a great idea, and Beverly's a genius. But so honestly, and obviously the show was incredible, amazing. Dan was, there were some sound, I mean, I know he usually does have the sound thing where he makes all the motions to Coop or whoever, but he was having they were having a little bit of issues with the sound, and then he started losing his voice throughout the end of the show. His voice was cracking. He had a big voice crack during literally the very end of the show at the beginning of Pompeii. And he had a lot of trouble singing during Good Grief. He, especially like watching through my fingers when he has to sing really high, he was having some issues with that. But otherwise, so during the show, again, the banners that my friends had made, they held them up behind me when I didn't realize. And so Kyle saw them. First, Dan saw the birthday one. They held up the birthday one first, but he was like in the middle of talking, so like he was reading it and seeing it, but he was finishing a sentence, but by the time he had finished saying whatever he was saying, my friend started holding up the other one that said, "Kyle, can she touch your beard again?" And he had seen the birthday one as well, and I could see him squinting to read it, but I didn't realize it was up yet, and I turned around and I was like, oh my gosh, and I immediately was so embarrassed. And he was reading, he read it and immediately laughed, and I'm like, I wonder if he remembered that happening. But then he started motioning down in the crowd to me, like he wanted me to hop the barricade and come touch his beard. And I was like, what? Like at first I literally wasn't understanding what he was trying to do, because it was very haphazard and I was also very emotional. And I was like, what? I can't hear you. And he does the motions again, and he was like, do you want, and he was talking really fast. I was trying to read his lips, could not understand. You know how Kyle gets. He talks really, really fast. And so we did it again, and I was like, how? Like, I was like, what? How? Like, I was like motioning him, because I'm like, what does he want me to do? I'm like, do you want to jump down here? And then Dan read the sign, and he like said in the microphone, I can't remember like, if it was like loud or talking, or if it was like low talking, like he was saying it to himself, and he was like, oh, it's for Kyle. And he saw that sign, and I was like, and he just kind of like, so like when I said on Twitter that he like cock blocked, he immediately like, and the reason why I said that was because he started doing the thing with his arm that he was like, all right, let's get to the next song and stop talking. And Kyle just kind of looked at him and then looked down at me, and I was like, frick. I was like, not that I could have done anything really at the time anyway, but I was like, dang it. I was like, I don't know what could have happened in that situation, but I was like, dang. But, so yeah, and then after that, and I was recording some of the music and everything, and I was really excited when they were playing Hangin' and Bad News, so I recorded both those full songs. But Kyle was looking down at me a little bit after that, like every so often, and my friends behind me told me, they were like, no, there were quite a few times that he was like looking down to you and you missed it. And I was like, great. So after that happened, like he was kind of looking down at me, and not necessarily like getting my attention, just kind of like looking down at me, and I was like making eye contact, which I've done at all the other concerts with them, so I mean, but then there was a time when I cannot remember the song, honestly, when I was motioning to him and pointing at him and singing, and he was looking down at me, and he just got this smile on his face, which like brightened my whole day. And watching Kyle during that show was wonderful, because the Norva had like an upper balcony, which you can see when Dan walked up there during Two Evils and during Flaws. He would look out, when I would watch him playing, he would look out around the top, he would look across or around, like he would do the semicircle, he would look up and around at all the people up top, just with this glimmery look in his eye, and then he would look out at the crowd, like he was just scanning everybody every once in a while, and it just looked so like magical, like he was like a kid on Christmas coming downstairs to a Christmas tree, and it was so just like, I don't know why it made me so happy, but it just made me think like, wow, like he seems happy, and like it just made me happy. So yeah, I got his attention a few times during the show. I got Dan's attention once or twice. And by the way, during Frenship's show, gosh, what's his name? Not James. The other acoustic guitar player and singer. He jumped down, and I held his hand for like a good 5 minutes, and that was pretty fun. And I had talked to him before when we were outside, and I was like, hey, we have matching nose rings, and he was like, hey, yeah. So anyway, the show was amazing. Like, I won't go on and on about that. You guys know how Bastille shows work. Hangin' and Bad News were amazing. Bad News, it was like basically the exact same as the Bad News Soundcheck session online that they uploaded, which was incredible. He didn't mess up the choruses, but he did majorly mess up the second verse. So again, he cannot sing Bad News correctly to save his life. God bless his soul. I held up my glow-in-the-dark triangle that we had at the last two shows, or no, the last one show, the one that we ended up giving them and they put on stage, and then they put on stage at the next show, and that was amazing. So I held that up again, you know, during the draw and everything. So the show was just incredible. It basically went as planned as other shows have gone. And Woody was like angelic looking. I loved watching him on stage, and I love when he comes to the front too, because especially when I'm filming songs at concerts, I want to see Woody, because I know, like, when they'll do acoustic sessions or they'll do like Vivo Presents or whatever, when they'll film him playing drums, it's so fun to watch, but like when you're in a concert, you never get to see it. You just don't. I mean, like, there's too much in front of him. So when he has those few chances to come up to the front, I think Overjoyed, I don't think he did actually. I was expecting him to, he did. Will and Kyle were up next to each other. When he gets to come up, and he does for the draw always, because he does the triangle thing, but I love seeing him. Like, he's so much fun to watch. Will's always fun to watch, and he seemed very, very happy yesterday, which made my heart very happy. Because sometimes when he's on stage and he'll like seem kind of disinterested, because that's sometimes his personality, but he's probably not. He's just kind of chilling. He was so smiley. He was so interactive with the crowd on that side, I noticed. He was interactive with the people on his side on the balcony. They were smiling down at him and waving at him, and he was loving it. He was so great. And for some of my friends who were on that side were saying he was extra flirty and stuff too, which he tends to be. But I loved that. Kyle seemed very happy too. He was very dancey. Charlie was, I mean, he always goes all out and dances and everything, but watching him dance and swivel his hips around, and then when he does Icarus and the lights shining on him, it's just so fun to watch. Like, God bless Charlie. Dan was very high energy as usual, but again, throughout the show, when he started having issues with his voice, I could tell he was getting a little bit frustrated, but every time like something fun would happen with the crowd or whatever, he would look down at us and we would be singing and helping him along, and the smile he would get on his face, it was just, it warmed my heart, honestly, because when he gets these big happy smiles on his face, it's always when he's looking out at us in the crowd, or whomever's sign is they're holding up. Like, he just seems so happy, and it's just, I love it. I love this band. I love these people. And the show in general, the crowd, everyone was just very high energy, very jumpy, singy, happy, yelly, and it was just an incredible show. And then, so we pack everything up, we go outside, we wait for them outside their buses. Dick walks past us once when we were just barely outside the venue, and I was like, hey babe, like, hey Dick, blah blah blah. And he came and he was like, oh hi Audrey, and I was like, so we're on a first name basis now, it's fine. So he came to talk to us for a little bit. I told him about the sign thing that happened during the show. I told him, it was just, you know, more conversation or whatever. So he was chilling with us for a little bit, and I was kind of surprised, because I was like, I was picturing after the show he was going to be in like mad rush. He seemed pretty chill at the beginning, but then a couple of tour people came up to him while we were talking, like it was two people, and were like, Will needs you, and I was like, what does Will need? I'm very interested to know. So he had to run off first. Then he came back, and we chatted more. I was telling him, or actually I was asking him questions about some of the stuff we had been talking about previously. I won't get into all those details because that's fine. But, so then we were sitting outside, and we turned the corner and waited up against the wall outside, like in front of the tour buses at this point. Because we had been waiting around the corner for a while, because we weren't sure if we were kind of allowed to go back there yet, because the tour people were moving stuff around. So they were like, honestly, if you just come back and wait on that sidewalk, you'll be out of our way more. And we were like, okay. So, my voice is taking a toll, guys. So we were sitting on the sidewalk, sitting up against the wall, all of us. So it was me, Beverly, Stephanie, Megan. Did I say Stephanie's name before, who was with us all day? Because Stephanie was with us all day, and if I didn't mention her, that is a shame, because I love her. Love Stephanie. And just a bunch of us, and then a bunch of other fans. So the wall was basically covered with people for a while, and we were out there for a while. So the people that were getting cold and the people who were just like not feeling like waiting left. So it was, I can't remember the timeline for this, but one of the crew members we had talked to earlier that day, he had a braided beard that was really funny, and he was just really, really nice guy, and that we were talking to. And he walks past us, and I was like, oh hey, like what's up? And I didn't know his name before this, but he told us his name was Puddin, which is hilarious. I'm guessing that's just a nickname, but I love that. So he came up to talk to us and whatever, and I was like, the show was great, like I had a great time, like this is the best birthday present ever, like we were just having a conversation with him, and he was like, I have something for you. And I was like, what? And he was like, because it's your birthday, like I remember we were talking about it earlier. And I was like, okay. He pulls out of his pocket, I'm trying to figure it out, it's not within arm's reach of my car, pulls out of his pocket the set list with the black tape. He had framed it with black tape to try to straighten it out more because he had folded it in his pocket. He was like, I'm so sorry I folded it, but I tried to make it nice and framed for you. And I just, my heart melted in that moment. Like everyone was sitting around me, they were just like, oh! And I didn't even hold my hand out to take it at first because I was just sitting there like, I was like, what? And I was like, don't like feel bad for folding it. I'm crying over the fact that you thought of me and did that. Like, it was just, oh, it was so sweet. I honestly, it made me so happy. I was like, thank you so much. And he was so happy and smiling about it. He was like, I hope you enjoy it. Like, drive safely, you know, everything. And I was like, I really hope I get to see you again soon. And I was like, I need to hug you before you go. So I gave him a hug, and he had to keep working. And I was like, if you get a free chance tonight and you get a chance to take a break from working, like, come hang out with us. And he was like, of course. So we're waiting out there. Dick comes around the corner again. He stops and chats with us for a little while. And I was like, look. And he already knew before that with, like, me and Kyle. And by me and Kyle, I don't mean me and Kyle are a thing. I mean, like, you know. So I was like, look, what are they doing right now? Like, be honest with me. And he was like, they're in the Norva, like in the back part where there's like games and stuff. And I was like, And he was like, yeah. And I was like, what's Kyle doing right now? He was like, he's drinking beer, getting drunk, and playing pool. And I was like, great. Because like we had assumed that they had gotten on the bus already. I don't know why. But he told me that, and I was like, look, Dick, you don't have to, but if you could tell Kyle to get his butt in gear, and you could mention me if you want, and you could tell him that this psycho girl's been bothering me all day, and he laughed at that, and he was like, no. And he was like, okay, I'll talk to him. And I was like, what? And anyway, like throughout the whole day when I've been talking to Dick and everything, like before, every time he would leave us, I'd be like, I love you, like whatever. It was just adorable. I literally asked him to adopt me, and he was like, I think you're a bit old to be adopted, but so basically we just had this very cutesy relationship all day, and it was wonderful, and he was so happy and cutesy about it too, and it's wonderful. So we left again, and I was like, love you, and he was like, yeah, laughing about the Kyle thing. And also earlier that day, I forgot to mention, before we left to go into the restaurant, he came back, and I was like, can you put these on the bus? And I was like, I have these two unopened things. I had an unopened box of Cheez-Its and an unopened box of Goldfish, a little carton thing. And I was like, I don't want to throw these away, but they're unopened. Like, do you just want to put them on the bus for people to eat? And he was like, oh yeah, those will get eaten. Our refrigerator's broken. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah, we will definitely eat those. I was like, okay, that's awesome. And I gave him the two shirts that I bought for Kyle, the one that has like the drawn-on boobs on it, and then the mouse rat shirt, like Parks and Rec reference. And so he was like, yeah, I could put him on the bus for you. Like, he was like, I'll take him. And I didn't actually like ask him to do that. I was just, because at first I just asked him, what should I do with this food? Like, is there anybody in Norva that will take it? Like, anybody in the Norva crew? And so he was so happy to do it for me. And I was like, I almost felt bad, but he offered. And I was like, okay. So he took it and put it on the bus. So it's on the bus somewhere. Also, my birthday banner's on the bus, because he ended up taking that. I was like, because my friend gave it to him. She was like, just put it on the bus for her. And I was like, why? He's gonna see it. It's her birthday banner and probably feel really guilty. But honestly, I hope they save it for Will's birthday coming up and be like, it's her birthday. I don't know, that would be hilarious to me. But so Dick took the banner at that time. It was nighttime or whatever, and he kept coming back and talking to us quite a few times, because he walked past us a billion times and we were just chatting. So then I was like, look, like, is there a chance of them coming out? Like, yes or no? Like, we'll leave. Like, and I told him this before at the Charlotte show. I was like, we'll leave. It's fine. Like, if they're not going to come out, like, we just kind of want to know. And he was like, okay, well, look. Because I was like, there's not a show tomorrow. And he was like, yeah, but knowing them, I don't know if they'll come out. If they do, it's going to be a while. And I was like, okay. So that's why we were waiting out there and just kind of sitting it out. We figured Dick would tell us if it was just going to be a no-go. So he leaves again, whatever, we're waiting. And then the guys start getting on the bus. So it was like, I think it was Woody, and we didn't see Will at that time, but it was Woody and then Kyle, and we didn't see Dan. So we were like, oh, okay. Oh no, Charlie was first, and then it was Woody and Kyle. But yeah, so we're like, oh, okay, they're getting on the bus, and like they had turned on the tour bus a little bit, like a couple times. I don't know why, but I was like, oh, maybe they'll leave. But then I see Dick come out of the tour bus after he had gone in a couple times, and Dan came out, and I was like, oh no. And we were down the sidewalk, like quite a bit away. It's like the other people that were waiting before us, all the people in between had left, so we were kind of far away from them. So everyone in our group stood up except for me, because then Kyle came out and started looking over in our direction, and he was talking to Dick. And I was like, is this, like, I was wondering, I'm like, did Dick actually talk to him and tell him to come talk to me? I was like very, not surprised, but I was like, is that what's happening? Because he immediately came out of the bus and looked over at us and looked like he was going to walk towards us. But then Dan walked over towards the bigger group of people, and Kyle kind of followed suit. So we slowly meander over there, because I didn't want to run. I didn't want to chase after Kyle. I didn't want to just try to take his attention away from everyone else, because I felt bad. And I didn't want to take an experience from someone else who maybe hadn't met them before. So I just kind of slowly meandered over there. I tried not to freak out. I tried to get their attention. I waved a little bit at Dan. I waved a little bit at Kyle, but I couldn't get Kyle's attention long enough to actually tell him that I wanted to tell him something important or whatever. And honestly, all I would have said to save time, it was just like, hey, I was the one, my friends held up the sign, and just, you know, see what happens from there. So, yeah. And they were talking to people. There was one girl in specifics that was basically hogging Kyle and just talking to him. She had pulled him aside, and I was like, that's frustrating. Then she pulled Dan aside and took selfies with both of them while they were trying to get back on the bus, and I was like, okay, like, that's not fair to all these other people that are out here, and not just me, like I had a meet and greet with them, like, I'm very blessed, and, like, I don't expect anything, like, I'm not, what's the word? I'm not a priority. I'm not the one that, I'm not gonna push through people, you know, it's just not right. I don't prioritize myself over other people. So, when that one girl did that, I was just kind of like, frustrated. I could see other people were too, but, he got around to a couple people. I think Dan and Kyle were signing a couple things. Then we took a big group picture, because they were like, we're in a hurry. And they all got on the bus. And Woody snuck in, like, last minute. I barely noticed when it happened. He snuck in for the picture. And Will wasn't there. Will was, like, he wasn't in the Norva building, I don't think. Still, but he, like, came around one of the street corners, like, probably 15 minutes later while I was waiting out there. And I was talking to Dick, and I was like, Kyle just went back in the bus without talking to me. And he was like, hon, I don't know what to tell you. You got to take that up with Kyle, not me. So when he said that, I was like, did he tell him to come talk to me and he didn't? Or, like, he couldn't figure out what was going on? I was like, I don't know what that means. But Dick was just kind of laughing about it. And he was texting, I gotta tell you guys, he was texting in the WhatsApp on his phone. And I saw the Bad Lads of Bandville text group in person. Like, it was so funny to me. And I was looking down at his phone, and I saw the last person to text was Charlie. I couldn't read what it said because he moved it. And I was like, oh, Bad Lads of Bandville, nice group text. And he was like, yeah, it's our whole group text for the crew. And I was like, oh yeah, I know, they already exposed themselves with that. And he was like, oh, okay. So he was like, felt sorry for me. He wasn't being, like, weird about it. He was just like, oh, like, sorry, like, he actually kind of, like, he was like, Kyle's an emotional lad, that one. And I was like, see, he was kind of, like, throwing him under the bus. I was like, no, like, it's fine. I just, like, wish I would have just been able to say the one thing to him and, you know, acknowledge that was me. But it's fine. Like, I'm not salty about it. I'm not salty at any of them at all, because, like, I was there to see them perform. I wasn't there to bombard them. Like, that's, you know, that's just me. I was totally fine with it. And Dick was like, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. Like, the banner's in there, all the stuff you gave me earlier is in there, whatever. So they get back on the bus, and I think they're gonna leave, but then Dick comes back out and is getting some stuff, and he's holding a case and like some stuff that looked like trash, and he dropped a bottle cap on the ground, so he was holding like part of a 6-pack of beer. And I was like, is there still beer in that? Just as a joke. And he was like, yeah. And I held up my wristband, because they gave us wristbands before we went in that say either over 21 or under 21. So obviously I got an over 21 one. 23 today. So I was like, look, I'm over 21. Can I have one? And he was like, yeah. It gave me one. And I was like, wait, but weren't they all drinking one? And he was like, they don't need any more beer. And I was like, but should I steal a beer from Bastille? That's a little bit weird of me. I don't know. But I was like, okay. And he gave it to me. And it was just, he's a freaking legend. Like, he was so kind. He did not have to be as kind as he was to me yesterday. He didn't have to keep coming back and talking to us. He didn't have to remember my name. He didn't have to ask me about my life. He talked to me about my job and that I'm a teacher, and he was like, I love that. And he didn't have to do that. And we actually talked about politics really briefly. And also during the show, I screamed F Trump when Dan was talking about politics and how the world is crazy, and he just goes, yeah, when he heard it. And it was kind of like a half laugh, but also like a half, I'm glad I heard someone in America say that, because I don't know. But yeah, just talking to Dick about like anything and everything, like, and feeling like he genuinely cared, it was just a blessing. Like, I gotta tell you, and I know I was saying it on Twitter and on Snapchat and stuff a little bit, but when I say like, who is Bastille, I only stand Dick Meredith. Like, honestly, I'm telling you, and I told him this too, I was like, I'm the biggest Dick Meredith stan, like, I'm your biggest fan. And he was like, you're my only fan, like, no one cares about me. And I was like, yes, they do, like, especially on Twitter, because I had been posting the flamingo stuff on whatever all day, and I was like, yes, people do care about you. And throughout the day, he was like, oh, I love you, like, and I love you for saying that, and just, like, being so kind about it, and, like, being so humble. But he honestly just made my whole day. That, and after those experiences were happening too, I was like, honestly, and this was before the concert even happened, I was like, if I don't, like, meet them or anything afterwards, whatever, I am BFFs with Dick Meredith, so that's fun. But no, he honestly, if it weren't for him, the day wouldn't have been bad, but it would have been different. Like, the tone would have been different, and we wouldn't have felt so included and felt like their tour people cared about us. And I couldn't stop hugging him and just, being like, oh, like, I love you so much. Like, I genuinely just really appreciate you, and having to run after Dan being a crazy person all the time. Like, we all really appreciate you and really respect what you do. Like, I wanted to say that to him multiple times, because I'm like, I really want you to know that. I really wanted him to know that, and he, literally, every time after I said that, he was like, he would put his hand to his chest like he was touched, and just would say, I love you. And it was just the sweetest thing, the sweetest and purest thing, and I love that man. I am his biggest fan. So that pretty much concludes the night. I forgot. So Will did end up coming back, and that was right before the beer thing happened. He came around the corner, and I saw him, and like, he looked good. And guys, and I had met him before and everything, and I know that Will is a beautiful man, but let me tell you, when he walked around that corner, I have never seen him look so beautiful in my entire life. Like, wow. So he started just walking towards me, I was talking to Dick, so I was farther up ahead than everybody. I was pretty close to the bus. So Will came around, and when I was talking to Dick about Kyle, and as soon as Will came up, he was coming up to Dick mainly, but he came up to me, and I was like, Kyle is being a turd, that's what we're talking about, because he was trying to, like, listen in on our conversation. He was like, really? And I was like, yeah. So I kind of explained it to him, just, like, jokingly or whatever, and I was like, because it's my birthday, like, I wanted to say something to him, and he was like, and he got, like, this cute little Will smile on his face, and he was like, happy birthday, and I was like, it was so great. And I just, like, I said a couple of other things. I was like, you did so great tonight, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, you seem so happy on stage, like, are you happy to be here? And he was like, yeah, I'm pretty happy to be here, like, just so casually and cool, typical cool Will fashion. And it was so adorable, just, oh man, my heart in that moment just melted to the floor. And I was like, can I have a hug? Because I didn't want to shove a camera in his face, I didn't want to do any of that. I was like, I'm talking to Will Farquharson, I'm very happy. And I was the only one that interacted with him that was outside, like, because he just came up to Dick, I talked to him, and then he turned around and got back on the bus. So I was like, I have been blessed. So I was like, can I have a hug? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so there's that picture on Twitter of me going in to hug him because Stephanie took it for me. I didn't know she did, but bless her heart. And he just seemed so happy and like genuinely, like, what's the word? He just seemed genuinely like in a good mood yesterday, like in a positive mood. So he got back on the bus, but yeah, and then the beer thing happened, and then the night was over. So essentially, I had the most insane birthday present in the universe. And I mean, what's funny too is that once it had hit midnight, we were sitting outside. I was sitting on the sidewalk and everyone was like, happy birthday, when it turned midnight. And the first thing I did on my real actual birthday was be with Dan and Kyle, hug Will, get beer from Meredith, get a set list. Like, those were my first birthday experiences and presents. Like, that's so exciting and insane and amazing to me. Like, I honestly am so just, I'm blessed, guys. And when I say that I am blessed, I mean it. In every sense of the word, in all of the experiences I have had with Bastille shows, meeting them, being around Bastille fans, waiting outside and meeting the people on Twitter and whatever, there's always going to be a little bit of drama, but being in this community just has been such a positive influence on my life. And since 2012, knowing them and loving them and their music helped me so much. Before I knew the community very well, and the community was very, very small online. It's not like how it is now. Once it grew and once I became a part of it and finally got back on Twitter, on my Stan Twitter, it just, I cannot explain to you how appreciative and how, like, it gets me choked up talking about it, because so many of you on Twitter have supported me, have been kind to me, have gone out of your way for me since knowing me, since following me. And that to me is the most beautiful, wonderful thing just that a fandom could be and do. And I didn't necessarily deserve or ask for that kind of love, but I receive it, and I received it. And it's so special to me. And I hope everyone that's watching this and that I know, and people even that I don't know that just follow me, I hope that you all know that you have a positive and wonderful influence on my life, and you are such a great, happy part of it. And because of this band bringing us together, we can have that. But you guys, your kindness, your personalities, your funniness, everything that makes you guys you, makes the community what it is. And it's so important to know that. And though a lot of us Bastille fans struggle with mental illness and mental health, we all come together and we hype each other up, and we tell each other that we're important and good people. And it's so, so important to me that I see humanity out there being like that. Because this world, as Dan says 1,000 times during a show, because this world can be awful and crazy, and you just want to get away from it. And when I can experience things like that with you guys and be around people who I connect with and feel with and agree with so much, it's incredible. And I could go on, and I'll stop being cheesy. This video is about to be an hour, 45-ish, 48 minutes. But everything needed to be documented and said. Whether or not I post this video as a, if I type it up, or if I make it a YouTube video and upload it to Twitter, which I might end up doing, I'll do that. And yeah, so I'm gonna end this here so that I don't talk your ear off. I hope that you watch this in bits and pieces and don't sit and watch me yammer on and on with my losing my voice for almost an hour. But I wanted to document all of this, at least for me, so that I can remember and know what I felt like on my birthday and the day after on my real birthday. And just, I'm gonna leave this on, I love you all. I love Bastille, and I am so honored to be any part of any of this. The fandom, the band, the people, the music. I'm honored and blessed. And every single person that went out of their way for me yesterday, Beverly, Julia, Sarah, Stephanie, Megan, Melody, Sid, just, it's impossible to name everybody, Courtney, and even the people whose names I didn't necessarily catch, but was speaking with and told me happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Just, I appreciate your kindness in ways I cannot possibly explain. And Beverly, you are an actual blessing from whatever God is above or whatever exists outside of the universe. You came down on earth for a purpose, and that was to be a positive, loving, wonderful person, and I just need to say that to you right now. And Megan, you are my best friend, and I love you, and you doing all of this for my birthday and making everything for my birthday and getting Kyle to notice it, you know, and I just spoke to you before I left, you know how much I appreciate and love everything about you, and all of the incredible things you've done for me since I met you is astounding. So, I'm gonna stop gushing now. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoyed this primary source of a first-hand experience of a Bastille concert once again, my third one. Now, my fourth one will be on this Thursday in Philly, and that shall be a whole other experience and story for another day. I love you. I'm going to continue driving home. Thank you for keeping me company on my drive, and I will talk to you later on Twitter or otherwise. Bye.